there. Thanks for watching or listening to VIP Boxing's Bell to Bell podcast, episode 156. You're either watching us on YouTube, listening on iTunes or Spotify. You know me, Steve Lillis. You know John Evans. Tonight's guest, we've had a few boxers on here, but our go-to journalist is here tonight. I think it's his third or fourth appearance. His heart's at the Daily Star, but he's also in the Daily Mirror, the Daily Express. He's ringside everywhere. He's in the press box at Anfield every week or Goodison Park. He follows England to win the Euros, even though he's an Irishman at heart. Chris McKenna. Chris, how are you, mate?
Not too bad. You've scraped the barrel this week. There was no boxes available, so you've gone for the old journalist.
You know what? The only person I got on the subs bench for is Woody. I don't usually ask anyone until a Sunday afternoon, and I thought it was the final round. I just wanted to ask you about a fight week in Saudi. Was our final round, so I thought you're the man to get on anyway. How's life anyway, mate?
All good, mate. All good. Ticking over. Tighter races fizzling out on Merseyside, so maybe getting my nose into a bit more boxing, but we'll see in the next few weeks.
I'm hoping we're going to see a bit of boxing between Klopp and Salah for the end of the season, instead of the PR we're going to see after the last game when they're walking around cuddling each other, pretending it's all hunky-dory, but which they're undoubtedly do.
Exactly, mate. You know the football game. You did enough of it in your time, pal. We know what would be fed. Oh, bye-bye. We all love each other, and we'll see you again soon.
That's nailed on. That's nailed on.
Yeah. If you already paused for TV channels to play You'll Never Walk Alone before every game. No, can you imagine what it's going to be? I can say it because I'm from Manchester and I'll offend our Liverpool listeners. It'll be cringe-worthy watching that final day with Klopp. It'll be terrible. My TV will be going off.
You'll be too busy working. I don't know who's the busiest, Chris with football and boxing, or you writing everything I look at on Boxing Scene that's remotely got a British theme.
Hey.
All right, keep them out of trouble.
Doing our bit.
Yeah. Right, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll crack on and with round one. You know how we go, Chris. We go 3 minutes. We'll try and stick to it if we can. And John's going to start us off. British boxing's next star.
Yeah, it's more, I'm not declaring someone my next star here. I'm wondering what you think, because I see a bit of a dearth here of people capable of headlining arenas. Now, I know we've got the older heads and people who've been around are all just tapering away now. And there's when you go to shows nowadays, you may be in the MEN Arena, but there might only be 3,000 or 4,000 people there. And I'm waiting to see who the next person who will be capable of selling 20,000 tickets. The one that's jumping out at me as maybe being the most accomplished, a guy who might cross over a little bit, is an exciting style in a good division, might be Hamza Shiraz.
That's the name I got down.
That's a little bit of he's still got a little bit of a way to go, Hamza. He's got to win some big fights. I can see Moses Itama doing well purely because he's a heavyweight, but I don't think he's quite broken through yet. But it's pretty slim pickings, isn't it? I'm just wondering who you've got.
You know what? First I thought was Hamza Shiraz. I thought Ben Whittaker would have made more progress by now. And he still might, he's still not even he fought Leon Willins in his last fights. He's fighting guys who at the moment are fringe British contenders. And I don't mean that's as disrespect to Leon. He's only had a handful of fights himself. He could well go on and win a title. Hamza Shiraz, to me, to see what he does in Saudi and this 5v5. And, the thing with Hamza, Frank Warren and I was always believed in him. So Hamza Shiraz was my pick. But you know what? The last 18 months, I've been so out of the loop with the big shows, working on small halls and medium-sized shows. I've been out of the loop of that, seeing even potential guys who are in 6-rounders and stuff, who could come along and do that. Chris is the one who myself and yourself see 10 times more arena boxing than I do. Have you got anyone, Chris?
The obviously one, the talent-wise, you're looking at is Dalton Smith, and he has a lot of potential still to come. He's coming off the back of a big win, but it's about building the fan base as much as obviously Dalton's not perfect, but he's got a lot of he ticks a lot of the boxes talent-wise and stuff like that, and so you're thinking that, but it's selling the tickets and it's building fighters, and I think that's becoming a more difficult task, is building fighters, and over the last few years, the arenas have become such a big thing that the small hall shows haven't been as important. And it's difficult to get if you're a Manchester fighter, I would say, and you're being put on a show in London and you're not a big deal yet, to get all your following to trek to London for a show and go into the O2 when you're on at 4:30, 5 o'clock, get them to fork out for hotels and tickets. And it doesn't really create that buzz. If everybody uses the Josh Warrington and the Ricky Hatton examples, but these guys were built well on small halls. And a bit slightly different. I know Ricky had the backer from the start more, whereas Josh had kind of done it himself and then got picked up. But that's how you slowly build up your followers. And I think it's a lot harder to do unless you become an event star. Ben Whittaker can do that because of his profile, Olympic medal, etc. But I don't know. Doesn't seem to be any real great ticket sellers with the talent and maxing both up. So my pick would be Dalton Smith. Hamza Shiraz is a good example. And I know we're going to talk a bit about Saudi later, and there's a lot of the good stuff that Saudi is doing for boxing in the money it's putting in. By bringing some of these fighters to Saudi, we might lose building the fans as well. So it's trying to get in that kind of match right to build those next kind of stars. And I think that could be a problem in the next few years.
Well, I was going to say, it's also disposable income in the current climate. You see all these news programs about older people are the ones that even nightclubs are aiming at now because they can go out in the afternoons. But anyway, that's diverting away. Round two, Chris Mayweather, he's starting on his old mate Gervonta. He was starting on Devin Haney. Tell us why is he around with all these up and coming boxers?
Obviously, like it seems to be with Floyd Mayweather that he brings them in and he gets them into his gym, and he obviously had to go at the promotions, and he's obviously very close with Al Heyman for what they did together at the end of his career. But then he falls out with them, and I don't know whether is it jealousy, what is it with Mayweather that he falls out with them, and that's fine if you fall out with them and you're not going to back them anymore. But I don't get why the public kind of hammering of these guys, because America needs, you're talking about British needing headline stars. America needs headline pay-per-view stars. Nobody is reaching the numbers that Mayweather got to. Nobody is close. They've got some talents there. You're talking two of them there, Haney, Gervonta Davis. Now Ryan Garcia is back. You got Terence Crawford. Spence may come back. But these guys haven't got close to the numbers that Mayweather and the De La Hoyas did. So we need these next stars. And Mayweather kind of downgrading them with that it's not good. And look, Mayweather has earned a lot from this sport. It doesn't mean he owes the sport anything. So if he doesn't want to help these guys, that's fair enough. Go and do your own thing, enjoy your life, whatever. But the public hammering of them, the public questioning of them, and then it just becomes all a bit disrespectful, I think. And it's quite sad to see, because he was such a great fighter himself. He could bring so much more to the sport, and I don't think he's doing it any favors by not belittling them, but certainly disrespecting some of those fighters.
John?
Yeah, I think you got it dead right straight away. I thought it for a long time. I remember being on Box Nation saying I thought it was a bad idea for Gervonta to go with Floyd because he gets jealous.
Yeah,
when he sees someone approaching, maybe not approaching what he achieved, because he achieved so much, but when he sees the next person coming who could potentially have people talking about him rather than Floyd being in the conversation, I think he gets jealous and sabotages it. That's what I think it is.
Look, I was thinking when Chris mentioned this topic to me earlier, complete ego. It's not about him anymore. It's not him being wheeled out at the MGM Grand on a Tuesday before a fight for these grand arrivals. It's not him, driving his that tour bus he had and parked outside the MGM Grand with all his entourage on when he lived. It's not him going in little interview rooms with 50 hangers on having it. It's gone. It's past him. I think he struggles to cope with that as well. Because, great record, great fight, and no one's doing these numbers, but the game's still coping without him.
He's got the 50-0, and that means the world to him. If someone ever approaches 49-0, a notable fighter, Floyd will go crazy.
Round three, Billam-Smith, Riakporhe. Again, you two lads might know more why this decision was made. I can't for the want of me why Billam-Smith, who's become one of Sky's better stars, does good numbers, created some great nights in Bournemouth, is suddenly going into Selhurst Park for the fight against Riakporhe. I can only guess there's got to be a great financial cushion to go there. but I don't see the thinking behind it, why they think it's going to work at Selhurst Park. I mean, Riakporhe, okay, he's supposedly a Palace stand. You'll have the database Palace can reach out to. But I don't see how it's... I know Bournemouth's ground holds 11, 12,000. How they're going to get many more in that? And why take one of your stars into the territory of a man who is already beaten? And good luck. It'd be great if 25,000 people turned up at Selhurst Park. But I just can't get the decision behind it.
No, I can't understand that one either. I know there's something about 100 years at Selhurst Park and some celebration, so maybe there's been a few quid put up towards for that. But I was at Bournemouth last year, about 11 months ago, last May, end of the football season, sun baking down. It was one of the real good fight weeks. There was a bit of buzz around the town about it, like when you were walking around the town, people knew the fight was happening. And that's one thing that we lose in the bigger cities sometimes because there's so much going on. People don't know the fight's happening, but people around Bournemouth knew that fight was happening. Look, it was helped that the weather was class, and it created a bit of an atmosphere to weigh in on the pier.
Yeah, great.
It was all really, really, really good, and it's going to go. And I hope it's a success because both fighters deserve it. But I don't think Riakporhe has the fan base. Billam-Smith has the fan base. We're talking about next big stars. Well, Billam-Smith's not a next big star because of his age, but he's a current headline act because he's got a good fan base. You're right, Steve. It should be at the Vitality. Put the ticket prices up a little bit. You'll generate more income from it, but you'll sell it out no problem, and you'll create a big fight atmosphere. And Billam-Smith's the champion, so I don't see why he's going away for this one.
That's what I was going to say. He's the champion.
Yeah.
You know, if you go into a definite 25,000 sellout, I assume Billam-Smith's got a guarantee on his purse, and so he's not bothered how many people turn up. But Riakporhe isn't going to sell 25,000. That's not going to happen. I was starting to wonder whether there might have been a big South London light heavyweight fight on the undercard, but I don't think that's going to happen now.
Well, there was talk of Buatsi Yard going on that bill, but it's not going to now. I'm hearing that's going to be August now.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's true, but that's the only thing I could think of. But maybe that was all but certain, so they booked the venue, and now they're stuck with it. So it's going to take some selling job. It's a shame because it's such a good fight.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah. Round 4. What's next for Ryan Garcia, John?
Yeah, right. Ryan's at a bit of a tipping point, isn't he? You know, what a win, what a performance. The weight, outrageous. You know, I'm sure we all agree on that. But all of a sudden, boxing's got a megastar, Ryan Garcia, and I can picture what's going to happen. We're not going to see him for another 8 or 9 months. And then he's going to come back. He's either going to drag someone down from a catch weight, or he's just going to box a top 15 guy from the roster at welterweight. And we're not going to see him capitalise on it. And I think it's a real shame because Ryan's shown that he's got the ambition. He's shown he's got the courage to do it. But I think they know he's fragile. They know he can be beaten by someone on the game at the right weight. And I just worry they're going to protect him and use the out-of-the-ring stuff to promote him rather than what he can do in the ring. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we see Ryan Garcia at welterweight, taking on good people, but I just can't see it happening.
Yeah. I think I can see him fighting maybe someone. There was 2 things. Remember, one he mentioned himself. I can see it myself, maybe Barrios. So who's that Lithuanian? There's a Lithuanian, I think, it's got a WBA. Yeah. Or what about this? When you talk of weight draining, fighting someone like Fundora and this time on the weight, bringing Fundora right down, doing what Floyd used to do to fighters, bring them down to his weights and doing something like that. Because as good as Fundora is, he isn't going to see that money in many fights. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. What do you see, Chris?
Yeah, what I do fear is what kind of John touched upon there is the inactivity and not building on it. We're looking at Terence Crawford. Okay, he's fighting now in August. He just had an absolute massive win last July, and nothing's happened since then. Absolutely nothing. And he was caught in a rematch clause, and Spencer was having issues, and we've obviously seen now Spencer's having trainer issues and court cases ongoing. But career's just been held up, and again, we don't have these superstars anymore, these Floyd Mayweather numbers, because nobody's building on it. at least you knew with Mayweather, he was fighting September, May. Okay, that was a long gap between fights, but at least he kind of had some calendar to his career, certainly towards the end. Whereas now these guys fight and everybody gets giddy about them, and we just don't see them for long enough. So I don't really care who he fights as long as he's back active straight away. The Haney rematch would be interesting to me just because I just think at a fair weight where they both agreed upon it, it might be a different fight. So I'd like to see that again. But as long as he's back out within 6 months, that's the main thing.
Yeah. Seeing him out and about on the private jets and on stage and stuff, it doesn't look like Ryan's going to step foot in the gym for a little while yet, does it?
Right.
No, definitely not.
Round 5, Chris, you're going to talk about Vegas, place that we've been to often enough. Don't want boxing to forget Vegas, do we?
No, and it's going to kind of fall into the next category of yours, Steve. But I was over there recently just on a holiday. Towards the end of the holiday, dipped in just because I love the place, just not because of the boxing, just love the atmosphere. But they had the ring up in the MGM and in the lobby for Canelo Munguia, which is obviously coming up this weekend, and it kind of reminded me that it's been a long time since even I've got over there for a fight, or any British fans have got over there for a fight. And there's been a few Canelo fights there. We had Crawford Spence there last year, but we need that city to be buzzing because, again, when we talk about familiarization and people having an attitude towards boxing, if it has a capital, it needs its Wembley. It needs that kind of place where people levitate towards. And Saudi is coming to the sport, and if you look at everything that's going on, if you take away everything of the negative side of it, they're pulling loads of money in, and that's great for the boxers, and that's making fights happen that we didn't think were going to happen, but are happening in Saudi. Great, but let's make sure we have enough fights in Las Vegas too, because it's taken a long time for that place to build up that reputation of being a fight capital. It creates that kind of glamour around a fight. I think that adds to the excitement, adds to the numbers, and yeah, and I just think there's just that bit of magic there that when there is a fight there and everything's contained as well, Stevie, and you know when you're there, you know the fight's happening because you're around the fight hotel. The punters are as well. They can see the posters. They can run into ex-fighters. It becomes something for fans to go to and see and experience. They don't even have to. They can do, but the main thing, get a ticket for the fight. But if they don't have a ticket, people just go to have the atmosphere and the experience. You can't do that sometimes in New York even. You can't do that in London sometimes or Manchester because you sometimes get swallowed up in the city. You don't know what's going on. And the same, which I'll talk about in a bit with Saudi as well, that sometimes you can be there and not realize it's happening. But when you're in Vegas and there's a big fight in town, everybody knows there's that buzz. And I just hope we don't lose it. And I hope it keeps bringing big fights there.
You know, I wonder if this is me, devil's advocate, whatever you want to call it. I was in Vegas when was it? At this time last year, actually, for a music festival. And I popped down the strip from downtown to have a look. And I just got there, but also Vegas for its marketing now. It's a very expensive city now. Very, very expensive, even downtown. And there's also these hotels now. They seem to be appealing more to the young audience, the clubbers, more than they would the traditional boxing fan. Now, would people be put off from going to Vegas now? You know, the sort of people who will go to boxing because it is no longer the $1 a beer or play a slot machine for 2 minutes and you'll get a whiskey on the rocks.
Yeah, it is a more expensive place. You're not wrong there, and it is a good point to make. But I still think people will go there for the magic of it. And the other thing with Vegas is, I think they're less reliant on boxing, so they're not pulling it anymore. Not just because of the clubbers, which is one thing, but they also have the American sports there now.
That's right.
They've got the NHL. The NHL, the Stanley Cup champions. They've got the NFL. They're getting a baseball team soon, and they'll have an NBA team in the next 5 years. I'm adamant as well. So they don't need the fight sports as much as they used to.
What's your take, John?
No, I agree with you both. I love it over there. I do. I love it. There's nowhere like Las Vegas for a big fight atmosphere. There's nowhere. And I know we see the Saudi shows, and I've hummed and hard about going over to it, but it just doesn't look like my type of thing. It all looks very manufactured. Yeah, you're surrounded by all the pre-fight publicity, but you can't live that 24 hours a day. When you go to Las Vegas, the fight's there, it's all around you, but there's so much other stuff to do, and it becomes like a holiday as well as a fight. Whereas Saudi, it's just saturation, isn't it, with the fake billboards and everything like that. It just doesn't appeal to me. It wouldn't appeal to me as a fan.
Yeah.
But yeah, Las Vegas, it's just it's one of my favourite places.
Oh, right. You mentioned finishing with Saudi. John takes us on to the final round. I just wanted to ask Chris a lot here about Saudi life, what it's like in fight week. I go back. I know Abu Dhabi's different to Saudi, but Steve Wood went to the Zelfa Barrett fight, and he just said how bizarre it was out there. Everything was absolutely brand new. All these restaurants built and it looked amazing, but nothing was open because it wasn't ready yet and stuff like that, these places. I wonder, what is it like in Saudi fight week? You know, is it like Vegas where you have the press rooms and stuff? What's it like on fight night when you're having an hour between fights and stuff like that? Just tell us, Chris, just give some insight to people watching and listening to what it's like a fight week in Saudi.
Yeah, so I've had two experiences of it, and they were very different because they were run by different people in Saudi. So the first time I was there was for Anthony Joshua Ruiz 2, the rematch, which was the first mega one. I know they had Callum Smith, George Groves there beforehand, but that wasn't as big. But this was their first kind of the kind of skills challenge lot's first dip into boxing. Big dip anyway. And it was a bit mayhem because they built an outdoor arena. It was in Diriyah, just outside of Riyadh. It was kind of like a lot of scaffolding, but with like executive boxes, and it was all a bit disjointed that week. I went again so at the end of last year, December, for Joshua against Wallen, and they've just built a brand new arena outside of the city, but on the outskirts of the city, called the Kingdom Arena. Now, it wasn't really all finished. It had been finished properly for the Fury and Ngannou fight, but they were still putting a football pitch into it for one of the Saudi teams are going to play there. I think Neymar's team plays there indoors. So the boxing arena for Joshua Wallen was actually contained within the arena. It was just all a bit strange, I have to admit. The fight events, initial grand arrivals were at this brand new theme park, which was really busy. It was brand new. I wasn't there for Fury and Ngannou, but a couple of guys that were there and were there in December said that they were still building this theme park when they were in there in October, and then it was fully operational by December. Stuff just happens over there. But I didn't find any of the local people there for the grand arrivals were that interested in it. So it didn't seem to capture their attention. Then the press stuff happened at the arena, which was just media only and the fighters team. So it's very different. And again, it's going to be interesting for the Fury Usyk fight, I think, because that's the first one where I think people might be tempted to travel to there specifically from the UK. I think previously, and a lot of the fights have been decent and good and interesting. Joshua Ruiz too was a massive fight at the time. Joshua's career was on the line. He was a big star then, and still is now, but he was even bigger then. This one is Fury Usyk. People have been waiting for a long time. Will people travel? And if they do, will that create a different atmosphere? Because of the lack of alcohol in the arena, it's a very different atmosphere. I know Vegas is a different atmosphere to London. It's American fight fans go there to be entertained. So they react to how the fight goes and they sit there with the food and it's a show to them. And that's great. They're not up singing Sweet Caroline. The British fight fans, everybody's been out on the booze all day. Everybody's up for it. So in Saudi, it's a lot different. Again, people are there to be entertained. They do react to the sight and sounds. If the fights are good, the crowd gets involved. But if the fights ain't great, it's quite a flat atmosphere. So will this bring crowds to over there? I'll be interested to see. But if it does, it might change the atmosphere. It might make it better. And you might realise there's a fight going on in town. I found the times I have been there, you've been wondering, is there a fight on here? Only for we are so kind of encamped in the boxing. We're going to the fight hotel to see the fighters. We're going to the arena to do the press conference. We know what's going on. But if you walk about in the city, you can't really walk about in Riyadh because it's so vast. it's cars everywhere, so it's hard to get a feel if people there are getting interested in it. So it's so different, and it's going to be interesting how long term they're going to keep doing it. Is this going to be a success? Are they going to lure people over there to travel to fights and football and golf and etc. and everything they're doing? So at the minute, it's kind of very early stages. I would say it's obviously it's so different from Vegas, but the atmosphere is very different, and it's going to take a long time to build that. But the first fight, I think, where people might be tempted to travel will be Fury Usyk. If they don't, then that'd probably be a concern for them.
Yeah, it's funny. Since I moved away from the media side of boxing, the print and Box Nation, the one thing I've said this to you before, Chris, the one thing I miss is the big fight weeks, whether it's in Manchester, London, New York, Las Vegas. So lucky in my life to have been around so many. So lucky and take nothing for granted. I'm desperate to go to another big fight in New York or something. Desperate to really want to go to one as a fan. A fight that appeals to me. I want to go to one again in the next couple of years, and I will. But the Saudi thing, I've got no inkling. I'm a bit like John. I've got no real. If it was a work or something, if I was working on a show, yeah. But I've got no inkling to go there as a fan and watch a fight. And I don't even drink anyway these days. So, but to go to New York again and be around a fight, be around, just standing in that Jimmy's bar at night, just talking boxing and looking at the stuff on the wall and being around the garden I love the Barclays Centre as well. I'm desperate to go there again, even as a fan. Whereas Saudi, I've got no inkling to go, even though I watch all the shows on TV from there, even though the last one, I fell asleep during the fight, one of the fights, because of all the gaps. Before we go, John, what's your take on it all?
Exactly what you both said. Just one thing. Chris, when you went out there working, were you there from like the Tuesday? Were you there all week?
Oh, yeah, I think I went out. Yeah, I went out on the Sunday, I think, the last time.
Yeah, the usual, like you do America, yeah.
Because they had a media day on the Monday with the British,
They
with
always
Joshua
do that,
yeah. So that used to be just for the newspapers, by the way, that you guys used to do. No, but it did, and
it used to be.
It used to be day.
In Las Vegas. It used to be the print, 5 Live and Sky.
Yeah, and you'd get 40 minutes, and it'd be really relaxed.
They won't have you boxing scene boys there, John. Boxing scene,
I'm
not near it.
I'm not having a go. I'm not just saying it's a very different day now.
Dead right, yeah. I got shunted out. I remember getting shunted out a scrum once by someone from a famous paper for being from a boxing scene back a few years ago. No, but all I was going to say is they seem to do, it's the same interviews every day, Chris, isn't it? So we speak to the media on the Monday. They do the grand arrivals and say the same thing on the Tuesday. They say the same thing on the Wednesday. The same thing at the press conference on the Thursday. It must be... I've been seeing them a lot. You're not getting much, are you?
That's the point I was making to Steve, and it's boring. Probably people who are outside of the industry, they don't really get it and care for this. But that Monday sit down in Vegas was always more relaxed. So get your stuff and ask the different stuff. Whereas now, as I said, it's just become another media day. So it's just like, oh, you've got 10 minutes, and it's like, oh, I just got to go through the old basics now. And he's just said that to everybody else, or she's just said that to everybody else. So it's like, it's a bit more mayhem now, whereas it used to be far more relaxed, sit down and get all your stuff in the bag. So you're not bothering them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because you don't need them again because you've got all your stuff, unless something mad happens.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Chris,
boring non-industry people.
No, I didn't find it boring because it's what I wanted to ask you. So, but I just wanted some insight into it. Maybe because I'm selfish, and if people turn off after 5.5 rounds, blame me because I wanted to know all that tonight. Because I haven't seen Chris for a while to ask him properly, so I thought I'd ask him in public. I don't speak to him now. He's a big man covering England football and getting ready for the Euros and all that.
I'm not doing the Euros this year, Steve. So yeah.
Oh, I'm not even going there. You're having a bad run then. All them England games. But right, I'm saying no more. What I will say, Chris, is thanks very much for coming on, mate, and we'll get you on again later in the year, mate. I won't talk football with you then. I assume you'll be
free in June, pal.
Free in June. John, thanks very much as always. Thanks everyone for listening. This has been Bell to Bell, and we'll be back next week. Thank you.
For all boxing info, news and latest interviews, amateur and pro, across and off, click and subscribe. VIP boxing promotions. Also, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook.